Hey, friends. Welcome back to another short episode of 4 Minutes on Friday. I am actually in the Gospel Jazz podcast studio. This is where a couple friends of mine and I shoot a podcast called Gospel Jazz. I will link that in the description below if you are interested in such things. We just got done shooting an episode of that podcast, and I decided after everybody left that I would go ahead and shoot an episode for 4 Minutes on Friday. Today, let's get right into it. I wanted to talk about something today that is definitely something that we don't talk about enough. We don't talk about it enough in regular society. We don't talk about it in church world. We don't talk about it in general enough. And part of it is because it is, I think it is a hard thing to talk about. We don't know a lot about this issue, about this problem. And so instead of dealing with the murky kind of gray unknown of this topic, we just kind of push it to the back burner. And the topic is, the issue at play is depression that often leads, I shouldn't say often, but sometimes leads to suicide. We don't talk about this enough. We are not honest with ourselves about what we know and what we don't know. And even when it shows up, we don't always know how to deal with it. I was reminded of this just this past week. My wife and I were watching a short series. I think it was a 4-part series on Netflix. And it became very obvious at probably about halfway through the series that one of the significant issues at play in this series was the mental health of what really is the primary character. Now, this is a true story, and so that makes it in some degrees harder to deal with because it is a true story. And it was just it was something that played out online in large part, but also obviously in real life as someone had died far too soon. And at play in her death was her mental health. And so part of this playing out in public had everything to do with the fact that it was a bit of an unsolved mystery for a while. And ultimately, it was discovered how she had passed away, and it wasn't something that she did not take her own life, but she was not in a solid mental health state when she did lose her life. Now, what was kind of interesting to me is that as some of the story was playing out online, there were lots and lots of people giving opinions on lots and lots of different online platforms about this individual and the fact that her life was now gone. And some of the things that people were saying, and I think they were genuinely saying this out of a deep concern and a sense of loss for her, but they did not know her and said things like she would never do this kind of thing. She would never take her own life. She would never allow this to happen. Even though as the conversation around her mental health leading up to her death was that she was not doing well. And again, this reveals the uneasy nature of mental health. Again, they didn't know her. They had never met her. It's just someone that they heard about through the series of events leading up to her disappearance. And I think part of that frustration, or part of those things that people had said about whether or not she would have taken her own life, or whether or not she was mentally healthy enough to make that decision, and suggesting that it just would not be possible. I think part of the struggle is that we don't exactly know what to do with folks who are struggling with mental health illnesses. And part of that is because we don't talk about it enough. But I do think there's another part of this that is at play, not just in this this tragic story of a young lady dying far too young. Part of the issue is we don't talk about it because it is hard to land what is going on, whether it is you specifically, personally dealing with that mental health issue, or you are some of the family or friends helping that individual walk through it. I just want to say to you, if you are struggling with that mental health thing, if you are wrestling with feelings of self-worth, or you are dealing with your value to society, or however it is that your mental health issue kind of crops up again and again, I want you to know that you're not alone, that there are people around you that love you, that would be happy to walk with you through this. But here's the other part that is so frustrating and can be such a struggle, is that there is this sense that it is a waste of time, because you have to go over and over and over that ground of dealing with your mental health again and again and again, and it can feel like a waste of time. I want you to realize that part of mental health, part of health in general, we talk about physical health all the time. You have to do the same things again and again and again in order to maintain a sense of physical health. The same thing is true with our minds. You have to be willing to till up the same ground again and again and again, and it might feel like it's a waste of time, and shouldn't I be over this, and shouldn't I be past these things? I just want to encourage you, keep doing that hard work. Jesus says something that I think is very, very powerful. This is recorded in the book of John, the Apostle John, his account of Jesus' life. And he says, "I have come to give you life." And some translations or paraphrase talk about, they say, "I've come to give you more and better life than you ever imagined, ever dreamed of." That more and better life doesn't simply show up just because you may have made a decision for Jesus or something along those lines. It is the result of continually going over the same ground again and again and again, and allowing God to uproot the things in your life that need to be uprooted, to change the things in your life that need to be changed. That is where the better life is found, is when you allow your life to be given fully over to Him. Mental health is incredibly difficult. It can be incredibly painful. But I want you to realize, if you are wrestling with that issue, you are not alone, and it requires the hard work of going over that ground again and again and again. So be sure and take someone with you on that journey to mental health. Do not fool yourself or lie to yourself that it's something you can do on your own. Be willing to talk about it with someone who cares about you. You have people in your life, whether you recognize it or not, that are willing to walk with you into these difficult things. So pursue mental health. Pursue your own mental health. Do the things that you must do in order to be healthy. Be willing to talk about it. And over the course of time, somehow or another, I think that we can begin to break down the stigma that attends to mental health discussions. And they don't have to be the kind of thing that is mysterious and held off. I think it can be the kind of thing that we talk about and we begin to understand more and more as time goes on, and as people are more honest about what's going on in their own mental health. Understand the life that Christ comes to offer you is not just for those who have it all figured out or those who pretend they have it all figured out. It is for those who recognize their brokenness and their need for Him. All right, that was longer than 4 minutes, but hopefully you stuck around and realized the importance of what we are dealing with in this topic. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.